Okay, these last three examples on our notes, we have to solve these equations. The directions say solve by factoring. The directions could just as easily say solve. The thing I want you to notice is these are polynomials. You have two terms with x's, and they're not both just x. That's x squared. I'm telling you, when you see this type of situation, you're not going to solve it by getting x by itself. You're going to solve it by using the zero product property, which means we need to see on one side that we have an expression equal to 0, and the expression has to be a product of factors. This is not a product of factors. We have two terms being added. So we don't solve this yet until it says something times something equals 0. So we have to factor this. Well, you have to look at each term and look for the greatest numerical factor in each, which is 3. You have to look for the greatest variable factor in each, which is x. You have to factor that out. You're factoring out that 3x. So when you factor 3x out of 3x squared, what's left? Or you can ask yourself, 3x times what gets me 3x squared? X. 3x times x gets you 3x squared. You have that plus, there's a plus. 3x times what second term gets us that second term of 9x? 3x times 3 gets us 9x. We can close it up because now we've got both terms in the original. So now our expression is in a factored state. Since it's now factored, we can solve by using zero product property. What makes this factor be 0? 3 times what gets us 0? X equals 0. What makes this factor be 0? X equals negative 3. Those are our two solutions. Next, right here. If you're thinking of dividing off 2 and dividing by n, stop it. Stop it, stop it. That's not going to make you have 0 there. Again, you have two terms with different powers of n. We have to solve this using zero product property. We're not going to solve it by getting n by itself. So zero product property has an expression equal to 0. We have to make this be equal to 0. The way to make there be 0 on both sides is to subtract 2n from both sides. That'll get you 0 on the right. So we'll end up with 4n squared minus 2n is equal to 0. Now it's starting to look more like this. Now we can factor. We have to find some greatest common factor between these two terms that divides out of both. So the biggest numerical value that divides out of both is 2. The biggest variable factor that divides out of both is n. So now we have to figure out what's left. What do we multiply 2n by to get this? 2n times what gets you 4n squared? Well, 2 times 2 gets us the 4. N times n gets us the n squared. So there's our n. And now it says minus, so we say minus. And we have to ask ourselves, 2n times what gets us that term of 2n? What? 2n times what gets us 2n? 2n times 1, right? Anything times 1 is itself. So that's the other one. So now we have to figure out, we have it in a factored state, we have to figure out what makes this factor be 0. What do you multiply by 2 to get 0? Well, one of those solutions is 0. That's what makes that factor be 0. This one, oh, we got a pesky 2 there. Okay, so what minus 1 is 0? 1. What makes that 2 go away? 1 over 2. So the other solution is n equals 1/2. Those are your two solutions for number 2. This last one, conveniently, it's equal to 0. So we just have to factor out the greatest common factor. What's the greatest common factor between 11 and 13? 1. So it doesn't make sense to factor a 1 out because you're still left with an 11 and a 13. So there's no number we can factor out. What's the greatest variable we can factor out between the two terms? X cubed and x squared. The biggest one we can factor out is x squared. So we factor out the x squared, and now we figure out what's left in that binomial. X squared times what gets us 11x cubed? Well, we need an 11, and we need another x. X squared times x, there's your x cubed. Minus x squared times what gets you 13x squared? Well, we already have the x squared, we just need the 13. Now it's in a factored state. an expression times an expression equals 0. 0 product property time. What makes x squared be 0? 0. If you square 0, you get 0. That's one of our solutions. 11x minus 13 has to be set equal to 0. What minus 13 is 0? 13. 11 times what gets us 13? 13 11ths. There's our other solution.